Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep the Mining podcast. And today's guest is Phil Day, CEO of Scotgold, a junior mining company who are Scotland's first gold producer and are growing their company with further exploration activities in and around the Scottish Highlands. Phil's a highly experienced senior mining executive with a career spanning over 25 years. He has a background in metallurgy and chemistry and has had senior appointments in his career, working on projects in Africa and the US before taking the helm at Scotgold. And he is here today to tell us all about Scotgold and their first, obviously Scotland's first gold mine. So I want to welcome Phil to the podcast. How you doing, Phil?
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you very much for having me here today.
No, and I appreciate your time as well. So before we go into talk about Scotland's first gold mine, I just wonder if you can tell us a little bit about your career, your background, and obviously you've been in the business for over 25 years. So just wondering, give us a feel for, or give the audience a feel for your background and your career.
Yeah, sure, no problems at all. All right, well, look, I graduated back in the 90s in Western Australia, and Western Australia obviously being quite a large mining state in Australia itself. It just had plentiful opportunities for me to go straight into gold and nickel and copper at the time. So did my graduate program in a BIOX gold mine, and then went straight up and then did some copper, and then on the nickel boom back in the late 90s into the early 2000s with the laterite projects. So worked for the first laterite projects down in Australia, which were a couple of $1 billion projects at that time, big, very complex sort of processes. And then the nickel boom took me on into refining, and then I went off into Brazil for 6-7 years, but a couple of years in Colombia, another couple of years over in Canada, then found my way into Europe. And from Europe, I went straight into the finance after having about 20 odd years of experience at that time, after working for companies like BHP and AngloGold Ashanti and the like, doing projects. Thought I wanted to see the finance world. So I went for a private equity firm, and from there it just exploded. I went into Vietnam and West Africa, the US, Brazil, just literally just doing projects after projects, buying and selling companies and making companies actually work, and making companies really work. And so that's where I got to see the business side of it. And then eventually went into the US, finished off a copper project, and got a phone call to go over to Scotland and repeat the same thing. So I've been over there for almost 18 months now, doing the same, and happy to say we're going along very well now. We're very happy with the history, very happy with the story that we've been able to create, and that's why I'm here today to talk about.
Yeah. So before we talk about Scotgold, what makes an Australian want to come to Scotland?
Well, I love the stories of projects that are around the world. Like I said, I'm quite agnostic to the countries that I work in, but when I hear a story that, like I did with Scotgold, which was not going very well at the time, and I knew it just fits right into my skill set, I just find that extremely rewarding to get into, because these projects are just so beneficial to local communities, to shareholders, to the directors of the board, to literally so many stakeholders, governments, everyone. So I just get in and I can see, after doing this sort of stuff for this amount of time, you get to see and understand things that probably other people haven't had the experience or the exposure to. So I went straight in under when COVID was in, did my 10 days of quarantine and the like, as I had to do back then. Went straight onto the site, saw it for what it was, and looked straight into the geology. I was incredibly impressed with the geology. It's the highest grade gold mine I've ever seen in my working career. And said, well, no matter what problems you've got in face of you, if the geology is great and the geotech and the stability of the mine itself is great, you can always build a good team. So yeah, I love the challenge. I went straight into it. And like I said, 18 months later, now I've got a great team of people, various people from all over the world, but people with lots and lots of experience, but other people that have never been into mining. So this is a new one. I've been able to actually grab more people and bring them into the mining industry. So I really enjoy that side of the business.
Which is what we need. We need more people in the industry. So that's a good thing. So I just wondering if you can tell us the story of Scotgold.
Well, Scotgold's been around for what? It was originally a lead operation from back in the 1700s and into the early 1900s, from what I believe. They had a smelter processing some of the lead concentrates back in that time, but gold wasn't found until, geez, I think it was about 1980, something along those sorts of areas. So when they saw the quartz vein, or some prospectors went out there and saw the quartz vein, which is the main host. And then, Scotgold itself, again, there's getting numbers off the top of my head. I think it was around about 2006, 2007, actually explored more of the area and finally went into production in 2020.
And obviously through history, I understand the mine used to be an old lead mine.
That's correct. Yeah, but that's back in the 1700s to to the 1800s, well before my time.
Yeah. So I just wanted to tell us a little bit about, I suppose, the mining industry within Scotland, and obviously the gold mining as well.
Yeah, so well, this is obviously the first gold mine in Scotland, so it has some positives and negatives that come with it. Positive is it's the first and only, which enables us to make some wonderful products, which we'll be going out and selling in hopefully the next near future. Products that are definitive of Scotland, so to speak. But the downside of it is that there's not exactly this depth of well veteran trained mining people, and underground mining it's not an easy thing. It's quite unique. You're trusting people to do drilling and using explosives to do blasting because it's hard rock mining. But like I said, we've got enough of people that have been able to be or have been in the UK, or particularly within Scotland, to be able to train others. And we've been focusing in on training and bringing people up to speed. And like I said, happily, we're running a very safe hard rock mining in Scotland as a result.
How have you find the challenges of bringing people from outside of the industry into the industry?
Well, it depends. It's a hit and miss. Sometimes it's wonderful. Sometimes there are people that come in from all sorts of, say like the armed forces and the like, that have just got the right sort of attitude and the like, and they pick it up very, very quickly. So we have some huge success stories of people that now supervise the roles that have come from the outside. And then there are others that find it quite challenging and make the decisions to go off and do other things. So I'd say it's hit and miss. But by and large, obviously, because we've been able to grow the business, we've been more successful than we have been unsuccessful.
And how have you sort of been received by the local communities and the local governments in the area?
Yeah, so we've been literally since April of 21, very much just head down and focused. And if take yourself back to that time, COVID was still alive and well all the way up until the end of 2021. So we had to manage our workforce extremely tightly by keeping them isolated and trying to make sure that they didn't get contact with as many people as possible. So that was, that was extremely challenging. But so 2022 has been really the only time that we've been able to, venture out a little bit. So what are we at now? We're in July itself. So really only had 6 months. In the last 6 months, we've had to open up the mine and focus in on funding and focusing on literally everything else but spending time, with our local people and the like. So that sort of work is well ahead of us. But obviously, as we're going to start going out and tell more people about the world, we'll be doing exactly the same within the local town and try to set up as many good relationships as we need to and should.
You're operating in a national park, which is obviously quite an achievement, given all the environmental permitting, etc. That one, obviously, what can you tell us more about that? Obviously, trying to operate and start a mine in the in a national park. So imagine there's a lot of issues and challenges that you have to overcome.
But the technology within the mining industry to work within a tighter regime of environmental restrictions has always been around. It's just a matter of how disciplined you would like to be in order to get people to be trained and how to get to operate these and or put them within the construction when you are building the process plant and the mining in the first place. So very, very fortunately, the people prior to me made the decision to put certain parts of the process plant, particularly like the dry stack tailings within the capital. It costs more money, so it would have been a very difficult decision to make, but it's a game changer. What it enables us to do is anything that we create as tailings, we don't make mounds and eyesores for generations and generations to come. We're able to get that dry product and fill in the holes on the side of the mountainside, so that when you look from the bottom walkways and you don't actually see any impact onto the lay of the land as you're working up the mountain. So that is just one, but outside of that, we have very tight controls. We have significant amounts of face-to-face meetings with our environmental parks people. So look, all I'll say is it's very, very doable. It's just a matter of how much time and dedication and effort you would like to put into it. And I think we get that right, because we're working on the relationship. We haven't been shut down once, and we're just going to improve and improve and improve from a position going forward, because the people that we employ, this is their country. I'm sure none of them want to be associated with a mine site that in any way, shape or form damages the environment. So therefore, I've got motivated people like that. We've got a motivated management team like that. So that's the best answer I can give on that one.
What other challenges do you face as a company, sort of being the only operating sort of gold mine in Scotland?
Yeah, so being in the UK is interesting. Having a lot of our vendors and products and coming in from other countries. We've had, particularly coming from Europe, we've had a lot of our stock that now goes through customs, which takes a lot longer, obviously, than it used to years ago. That has provided challenges. But setting up relationships with the right people within Scotland, particularly down into Oban and into Glasgow, has taken us some time to find who they are. But I'm extremely happy to be able to say that some of the people that we find, like the particular engineering companies and mining supporting groups, because we use a lot of machines. These people, they know exactly what they're talking about, like really, really spot on, very, very specialized people, and I'm incredibly impressed by them. But all we had to do was go down and talk to them, form some sort of relationship with them, take them up. Yes, maybe a mine site looks different to a bit of manufacturing, but eventually we've got them, and now we have good relationships with these people, and they're on site, either 24/7 or not. But we can rely on them to help us in our shutdowns and enable us to run our mine and our process plant nice and safely, stably, and that's because that's what we like.
What would you say is some of the main differences that you found working in Scotland in mining compared to some of the other mines that you've worked in across the world? Because obviously you've worked across the world, in Australia, US, Africa. What would you say is unique about what you're doing now that's different to what you've done in the past?
Yeah, again, like I said, positives and negatives. The positives would be the passion that has been, or that I've seen working with a Scottish workforce, is quite a lot higher than I have seen in other countries of the world. Some places I've been to, people have been in the mining industry for 10, 15, 20 odd years. So therefore new projects to them can be a little bit of ho-hum. The people that we've employed from Scotland have never seen it. You can imagine these people coming to a mine, seeing a mine for the very first time, seeing a process plant with mills and big machines. The enthusiasm is contagious. So that has been absolutely wonderful. The difficulty, obviously, is that, I don't start with 30-year veterans, so people, don't instantly know exactly what they need to do. There's always a huge safety concern, so you always have to train and make sure that you get that culture right, and that takes a bit of time. But then, it's probably, again, go back on the positive, it hasn't taken the amount of time that I thought it would. I thought I'd be having to train people probably for 6 months to 12 months to be really competent and the like. Probably because of their enthusiasm. The enthusiasm's got them. They've learned very, very quickly, and we are where we are today.
And what would you say the vision is for the company over the next 5 or 10 years?
Right, so we're very focused on achieving the goal now of pushing from phase 1 up to phase 2. Phase 1 was always this halfway point, I guess you say, in the life of Scotgold. Phase 2 is when it actually starts to really make a lot more revenue. We're predicting that we'll be able to have an EBITDA of around about 21 to 24 million starting once phase 2 is in place at the end of Q1 going into Q2 of 2023. So that's our number one focus. So that's what we've been talking about in RNSs repeatedly, getting our thickener in place, getting our mine optimization in place, having monies lent to us from Fernwealth here in Switzerland with a consortium of investors. That sort of work has enabled us to put together a growth plan. So we've delivered on what we said we would deliver. Now we've got to go into phase 2, get straight up to that by the end of Q1, going into Q2 of 2023. And then after that, or during or now, it's all about growth, because as we develop down the tunnels, we obviously are seeing more gold in areas that we didn't think it would be. We know that the drill holes, when they were originally put into the mine, only went down to 300 meters. That means our reserve and resource only goes to 300 meters from the top of the mountain. It doesn't mean the gold doesn't exist. It just means that we haven't put the drill holes down there. So we want to start drilling it out and take the place from this 290 or 300,000 ounce size mine and push it and get it up to the 500 or 500,000 as quick as possible by just doing some drilling in around the vein. And at the same time, we've got all these areas around Cononish vein, which have the same sort of telltale signs as the Cononish vein was as well. So that we want to start putting some drill holes in those areas and do some further geological exploration work and take the company into the 1 million ounce area. So if we can start to do that, then I think we're basically going to be in the start of a gold boom within Scotland. Which I think is very, very realistic.
Without getting too much away, you're looking at exploring other areas within.
That's correct. So we have 2,900 square kilometers of areas that we can explore. We've done quite a bit of field geology work that shown us that the gold exists in different areas. We've flown planes over and done all sorts of sort of surveying stuff. So we've done enough work. Arguably need to just do a little bit more, but done enough more or less to get ready for an exploration program which it actually uses drill rigs. And like I said, start putting in some drill holes that can confirm up another resource. And if we can do that, then we'll start another mine in another area, and or we'll just add to the Cononish vein itself. And the name of the game is to go from this 300,000 ounces, which is the total amount of gold contained within the mine itself, and get it up to 1 million ounces plus. Because once you get up to 1 million ounces, then you're starting to become an extremely serious gold mining company at that point.
Yeah. Obviously, this being Scotland's first gold mine, I imagine there'd be quite a demand from the Scottish people, and both in people within Scotland and expats as well, in that they want to buy some of the Scottish gold. Yep. Can people buy that, or where is the end product going to?
Okay, so like I was saying, we've been focusing on getting to cash flow positive and keeping it cash flow positive to build money in our bank so that we can always run through rainy days, as is always good practice with any business, no matter if it's mining or the like. So we've done that. We will come out with RNSs to tell how well we've done that in relation to our guidance. But basically, I'm extremely pleased of where we're at. And yes, we've been successful achieving that number one goal. We'll be growing to phase 2, but in parallel, we know that we make separate products within our mine, within a processing plant, one being a concentrate and one being a gravity gold. The gravity gold has proven to be more technically complex, but as people become more and more trained and competent, we're going to be able to put more people into that area to be able to produce gravity gold products. Now, what that means is we'll be able to make gold doré on site that we send to the refiners within the UK. And eventually that means we'll be able to make Scottish gold coins or Scottish bars or jewelry or whatever. There are some people that have come to me and would like to have the trim on their Bentley made of Scottish gold, as an example. So yes, there's an extreme amount of enthusiasm for it. But to be able to say that you've got gold that's from Scotland and it's from the only mine in Scotland, obviously is going to be a wonderful thing for people to say. So we're going to focus on that as hard as we can going forward. And hopefully within the next couple of months, I'll be able to come out successful and tell people where and how they can purchase this particular type of gold.
Yeah. And as concluding and as a final thought, I wonder if you can just sum up why people should follow Scotgold whether you're an investor or whether you just want to know more about the story. Just wondering if you had any concluding thoughts.
Right. Well, as we've talked about today, you know, we're the only gold mine within Scotland. I think that is a wonderful thing. I think we're on the cusp of having a gold rush within Scotland. The area that we are mining shows significant upside. I think once we start putting in some drill holes and the like, I think it will be becoming a very interesting story for people that have invested, plus Scotland as a whole. You know, and I think we're on our path to becoming, you know, a real player within the gold industry. And I think that's a real feather in the cap for Scotland. And therefore, I think people should follow us for that particular reason.
Yeah, certainly. Phil, really appreciate your time in giving us an overview of Scotgold. I'm sure most of our UK listeners will be following you, and any of those Scottish or even UK people across the world will surely keep an eye on your progress, and obviously wish you well for the future, and maybe come onto the podcast later this year or beginning of next year and give us an update, and obviously advise our audience where they might be able to purchase some Scottish gold.
No problems at all. Well, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, no worries. And if our audience wants to reach out to you, if they've got any questions that they want to ask you, and are you on any social media?
Yeah, so we're on LinkedIn, we're on Twitter, and on our website there's a email address that people can apply to or send emails directly to, and they'll eventually get me.
Okay, no worries. Phil, really appreciate your time again. For those that are listening, hope you enjoyed that episode, and certainly one to follow, especially being the first gold mine in Scotland. I suppose most of our audience who know Scotland wouldn't associate gold mining with it, but certainly the guys at Scotgold and Phil, who's leading the company, are certainly going to make some headway with the company, and wish you all well in the future. Appreciate you for listening. Please share this episode with friends, family, others in the industry, to spread the word. So appreciate your continued support. And until next time,